All right, Bills fans, let's talk about what's really going on with this team right now. Because, man, it's been one of the most confusing starts to a season that I can remember. You never really know which version of the Buffalo Bills you're going to get on any given Sunday. One week they look like a powerhouse, a team capable of beating anyone in the league. And the next week they look completely out of rhythm, making mistakes, missing opportunities, and leaving fans wondering if they're ever going to find that consistent groove we've all been waiting for. Let's start with the obvious. Injuries have been brutal. Dalton Kincaid, who's easily the most dynamic piece in the passing game, missed a huge chunk of the Miami game with that hamstring issue, and now he's probably going to miss even more time. Before that, he was already dealing with an oblique injury, and when you take a player like that out of the mix, it changes everything about how this offense operates. It's not just about losing production. It's about losing one of the key rhythm setters for Josh Allen. When Kincaid's on the field, defenses have to respect the middle of the field, and that opens things up for everyone else. Without him, things get tight. Allen's reads get more complicated, and the margin for error gets smaller. And look, I get it. The numbers don't tell the full story with this offense. Josh Allen has still found ways to move the ball and put points on the board, but if you've been watching closely, you know it hasn't felt the same. The flow is off. Drives stall for reasons that have nothing to do with talent. It's small mistakes, miscommunications, penalties, missed blocks, all the little things that turn what should be efficient possessions into frustration. Now, some fans are asking, are we overreacting? And that's a fair question, because not that long ago, this same Bills team took down the Chiefs and looked like one of the most complete squads in football. But then they come out flat against the Dolphins, and suddenly everyone's hitting the panic button again. The truth is, this season has been hard to read from the start. Remember that Ravens game? For 3 quarters, they looked completely out of sync, then turned it on in the fourth and pulled off a win. You look at that and think, all right, maybe they're figuring it out. But then the inconsistencies creep back in. Sloppy play against the Falcons, unnecessary turnovers against the Patriots, defensive lapses that make you scratch your head. And yet, somehow, they're still sitting with a winning record, 6-3, and right in the playoff hunt. That's what makes this team so frustrating. You can talk yourself into optimism if you really want to. You can say, hey, they haven't even played their best football yet, and they're still winning games. When it all clicks, they'll be scary. And honestly, there's some truth to that. But on the flip side, we've seen this movie before. Every year, there's that mid-season lull, that stretch of games that makes you question whether they're truly elite, and every year it ends the same way. A solid season that stops just short of the ultimate goal. Fans aren't asking for another almost. They're asking for consistency, for dominance, for a team that takes control early and doesn't let up. And that's what's so hard about this current version of the Bills. It's not that they're bad. Far from it. It's that they're stuck somewhere between great and good, and we can't quite figure out which side they belong on. The potential is there. Josh Allen is still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. The defense, when healthy, can go toe-to-toe with anybody. But football's not about flashes of greatness. It's about stacking consistent performances. And that's the hump this team just can't seem to get over. If you talk to people outside of Bills Mafia, analysts, fans of other teams, they'll tell you to relax. They'll say, it's fine, it's the regular season. This team will be there in January. And maybe they're right. Maybe we are overreacting a little. But when you've lived through the heartbreaks, when you've seen this team get right to the edge and fall short, it's hard not to feel that anxiety building when the same patterns start to show up again. This offense, at its core, is built for efficiency. It's not supposed to be about hero ball. It's supposed to be about rhythm, quick decisions, smart reads, and letting the playmakers do their job. But right now, too many things are pulling them away from that identity. You've got Josh Allen turning down open receivers, drifting in clean pockets, trying to make the big play instead of taking the easy one. You've got turnovers that kill momentum, penalties that set them back, and role-specific receivers who just aren't producing. Keon Coleman, for instance, is being asked to fill a role that doesn't suit his skill set and that throws off the entire balance of the passing game. The Bills wanted Coleman to be that big-bodied outside target, the kind of player who can make contested catches like a George Pickens or Cortland Sutton, but that's just not who he is right now. And it's unfair to him, too, because he's being placed in a situation that doesn't fit his strengths. The result? Defenses don't have to respect that side of the field as much, which means more attention on Josh Allen, tighter coverage on his go-to options, and fewer easy looks overall. It's a domino effect that makes everyone's job harder. And while we're on the topic, let's be real. This offense needs to lean more on players who can separate and create after the catch. Curtis Samuel and Elijah Moore have barely been used, and that's mind-blowing considering their speed and ability to find space. These guys should be getting touches every game. They bring something that Coleman and Tyrell Shavers just don't right now: explosiveness. And when your offense is built to be efficient, having weapons that can turn short passes into big gains is everything. Another name that deserves more attention is Gabe Davis. Look, I get it. He's not the most consistent receiver in the world, but his chemistry with Josh Allen is undeniable. He's made big plays in big moments, especially in the postseason. At this point, why not give him another shot to be a featured piece? The bar isn't that high right now, and if nothing else, he gives you a known connection that's produced in real games under pressure. When you look at all this together, it paints a picture of a team that's close but not quite there. They have the talent. They have the quarterback. They have the system. But something about the execution just isn't clicking the way it should. And yeah, it's easy to say it's just a mid-season funk, but it's hard not to feel that familiar concern creeping in, that sense that the Bills are once again hovering between potential and frustration. The thing is, they can still turn this around. The path is right there. But it's going to take a commitment to getting back to what works: quick rhythm throws, efficient drives, smart play calling, and putting players in positions where they can succeed. It's going to take discipline and a sense of urgency. Because through 9 games, we've seen flashes of brilliance mixed with long stretches of inconsistency. And that's just not enough if this team really wants to make a run at the top of the AFC. Now let's shift the focus a little, because the conversation about the Bills doesn't stop with the offense. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes that's shaping how this team performs week to week. The injuries are piling up, not just on offense, but across the entire roster. And at some point, you have to wonder how much bad luck is too much bad luck. Every game seems to bring a new setback. Someone pulling a hamstring in warm-ups, another guy tweaking something in practice, and before you know it, half your starting defense is standing on the sideline in hoodies. It's exhausting. And for fans, it's frustrating because it keeps happening year after year. But here's the hard truth. It's not as simple as pointing a finger at the training staff or blaming one person. Football is brutal. It's fast, it's physical, and it's played by some of the biggest, strongest human beings on the planet who collide at full speed dozens of times every Sunday. Injuries are part of the deal. You can have the best conditioning program in the world, the most advanced recovery tech, and still lose key players to freak accidents. Look at what happened to Ed Oliver, for example. A guy makes a routine tackle, sticks out his arm, and suddenly he's dealing with a torn bicep. How do you prepare for that? You can't. It's part of the chaos of this sport. That said, some of the soft tissue stuff is hard to ignore. When you see multiple players go down in practice or during warm-ups, that raises questions. Those aren't hits or collisions. Those are bodies breaking down under strain. Maybe it's training load, maybe it's recovery time, maybe it's just cumulative wear and tear, but it's something the organization has to keep a close eye on. You can't control bad luck, but you can control preparation. And at this point, Buffalo needs every healthy body it can get. And it's not just about the injuries themselves, it's about the ripple effect they create. When starters go down, depth gets tested. Guys who were supposed to be role players suddenly have to take on full-time duties, and not everyone's ready for that. That's how communication errors happen on defense, how busted coverages appear, how missed tackles turn into big plays. The Bills' defense, when fully healthy, can be elite. But when you start losing key pieces, especially in the trenches and the secondary, the cracks start to show. On top of that, the constant shuffling means the team never gets into a rhythm. Continuity matters in football. The best teams are the ones that can line up the same units week after week, build chemistry, and trust that everyone knows their assignment. Buffalo hasn't had that luxury. Every week, it feels like they're adjusting on the fly, plugging holes, and trying to make it work with whoever's available. And even though they've managed to stay competitive, it's not sustainable long-term. Now, one thing that often flies under the radar, but deserves some love, is how this organization handles its training camp setup. The Bills continue to hold camp at St. John Fisher, and honestly, I think it's one of the more underrated decisions they've made. Most NFL teams stay home now. They keep things convenient. They use their own facilities. They keep players close to family. But there's something valuable about getting away from all that for a couple of weeks. When you're at Fisher, it's all football all the time. Guys are living together, eating together, grinding through practices, and bonding in a way that just doesn't happen when everyone goes home at night. That kind of environment can build a foundation for the season. It creates that sense of unity, of shared purpose, and that matters more than people realize. You're not just learning plays and schemes. You're learning your teammates, building trust, figuring out who's going to have your back when the games get tough. And for fans in the Rochester area, it's special too. They get to see their team up close, get that connection that makes the Bills feel like more than just a logo on TV. That energy carries into the season. Of course, there are downsides. Being away from family for 2 straight weeks is tough, especially for players with kids. The grind of camp is already brutal, and adding the distance factor makes it even harder. But in terms of football value, it's hard to beat. It sets the tone early, it builds mental toughness, and it reinforces the culture this team wants to have. One that's about accountability, preparation, and resilience. And speaking of culture, that's something the Bills still have going for them, even in the middle of this frustrating season. This locker room is tight. These players believe in each other, and they believe in their quarterback. That's not nothing. You can see it in the way they respond after tough losses. They don't splinter, they don't turn on each other, they go right back to work. And that starts with Josh Allen. He's the emotional core of this team, for better or worse. When he's locked in, this entire group feeds off it. When he presses or gets frustrated, you can feel that energy shift too. That's why it's so important for Allen to find that balance again, to stop forcing the big play every time and get back to trusting the system. When he's playing in rhythm, when he's taking what the defense gives him, this offense hums. But when he starts drifting, trying to make magic out of nothing, that's when things fall apart. It's not just about him, but as the quarterback, he sets the tone for everything that happens. Before we dive back in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest Buffalo Bills updates straight to your screen. And hey, don't hold back. Let us know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. There's a storm brewing in Buffalo, and it's not the kind that rolls in off Lake Erie. Word around the league is that the Buffalo Bills have pulled off a surprising move, reportedly signing offensive tackle JEDRICK WILLS, the former first-round pick out of Alabama. The whispers started quietly, but spread like wildfire through social media, and now Bills fans are buzzing with excitement, and maybe a little disbelief. WILLS, once seen as one of the most promising young linemen in the league, had an uneven run in Cleveland, struggling with injuries and inconsistency. Still, his raw talent and pedigree were never in doubt. The rumor of his sudden arrival in Buffalo has set off a wave of speculation. Is this a calculated depth move or a desperate act of protection for quarterback Josh Allen, who's been taking more hits than the coaching staff would like to admit? Inside sources hint that the Bills' front office moved swiftly after internal evaluations raised concerns about their offensive line stability. The phrase emergency protection has been tossed around, fueling theories that this signing may have come in response to a recent injury scare or a worrying trend in pass protection. Fans on X, formerly Twitter, erupted as soon as the news broke, some calling it a genius mid-season steal, others wondering if WILLS can rediscover the form that once made him a cornerstone in Cleveland's offense. While official confirmation from the Bills organization remains elusive, the rumor mill is churning at full speed. Reporters spotted what appeared to be WILLS' agent in Orchard Park earlier this week, and local insiders claim the team facilities have been buzzing with unfamiliar faces. One anonymous player reportedly said, "There's definitely something going on. You don't see that much media traffic for nothing." If true, this could be the kind of under-the-radar signing that reshapes the Bills season. WILLS brings size, strength, and a mean streak that could immediately stabilize the edges of Buffalo's offensive line. The only question now is whether this move is a stopgap or the start of something bigger. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of all things Buffalo Bills, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. See you in the next update.